Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Scrollies podcast. I am Ratnado of twitch.tv/Team Ratnado. I'm here today, as always, with...
It is I, SqatCobblr.
SqatCobblr's here, and we've got a topic that is going to be very interesting to me, hopefully interesting to you. And what do you think, Sqat? What do you think about our topic so far?
I think so far it's going to be very unique. You know, I think I'm going to be delving into unknown waters, but we're bringing you the best here at Scrollies Podcast. So why don't you introduce our topic for our audience?
Okay, our topic today. It's kind of apt that you said exploring into unknown territory because we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, one of my favorite things to do, one of my ways I enjoy most spending time with people because there's a lot of things to be done in Dungeons and Dragons. I know it's gotten very big and a lot of you probably have an idea of it, hopefully good ones. And I wanted to talk to SqatCobblr about it because he is still somewhat of a Dungeons and Dragons noob. I'll let him talk about that a little bit more. Before that, though, SqatCobblr, we've had some big stuff happen to you. In the timeline, you've gone back to the 1890s and a whole thing with the Great Ape. And I just kind of want to know what's happening. What do you do with your time?
You know, it was quite a spiritual experience getting to meet the Great Ape for the second time. First being when I beat Tropical Freeze on hard mode, so long ago. 1894, it's great in some ways, pretty terrible in others. The internet signal here sucks. I keep wandering around with my phone, holding it up, looking for bars. I go into saloons for like a Wi-Fi point, nothing. It's just dead. So I'm pretty much tied to this barrel to communicate with anyone in the 21st century. But it's how it goes in the EHOT times.
Truly 0G on that phone.
Truly.
I'm sorry to hear that, SqatCobblr. You know, time separates us, but internet troubles do not. Currently, in our timeline, I've been struggling with my own internet, but I know some of you know about that. But today, I've made some big progress. I figured out how to do it, and I actually had a stream that went for an hour and a half. Super excited. It's big news. Normally, I get about 45 minutes, and I streamed today. I was trying to catch up with Sammy D. Shout out Samsonite D. I was trying to catch up with him on Ocarina of Time. Didn't quite make it. Got all the way up to, I guess, the Jabu Jabu's belly, or I was heading there. So
dealing with Princess Ruto, the ever lovely princess to carry around.
Oh my gosh, I remember even as a kid just being like, wow, back up, lady, please.
I think I've told you this. I don't know if I've told the audience this, but my first exposure to the Ocarina of Time characters was in Hyrule Warriors in 2014. I had begun my Zelda journey a few years before that, but I had not gotten around to the N64 games yet. So I had played Twilight Princess, I had played Skyward Sword. Those are the two big games covered in Hyrule Warriors. Wind Waker eventually, but that was DLC. So I was meeting these new characters, Darunia, Princess Ruto. So, I was really excited once I finally got around to Ocarina to meet these two. Darunia was cool. He was a little gruff, but he sure liked to dance. Ruto, I know this is a PG podcast, but she was a...
Oh my God. Wow. We've got to cut that.
I'm speaking from the heart. I'm sorry. It's just, I gotta be honest.
Wait a second. In that, what form is it? Because I can't offhand remember it. Like adult, like Sage Ruto?
Oh yeah, adult Ruto, Water Temple.
Okay.
If I remember right, both of them, we're talking Hyrule Warriors here. It's fan service the game, but if I recall, both of them take place in the adult timeline portion of Ocarina of Time.
Right, absolutely. Warriors is a great game. Hyrule Warriors. I prefer Age of Calamity, unfortunately. And even above Age of Calamity, I'm all about that Fire Emblem Warriors right now.
The hype is on for the sequel? The new one?
The new one. It's kind of the exact same thing that they did with Age of Calamity, where you've got Hyrule Warriors, which is kind of just everything brought in, right? And then you've got Age of Calamity, which is like, oh, this is based around our game, our big, huge game. The first Fire Emblem Warriors is like, here's all these characters from every game from the past 25 years, and here they are. But the new Fire Emblem Three Houses game, Warriors, is more like Age of Calamity, where it's actually, I think, more focused on just that game.
So you got your fan service crossover game, and then you have your... If you know, you know.
I think it's a huge spoiler to people, especially
Okay,
Reliant K fans.
I'll phrase that differently. You got your fan service game that crosses over all the games beforehand, and then you have your, oh, this is part of the continuity that you know and love. Wink, wink, nod, nod. If you know, you know.
Reliant K fan. Let's just say Reliant K fan.
Shout out Reliant K fan in his ever continuous quest to avoid things that he really wants to see.
Okay, enough about Reliant K fan. All we're ever talking about is Reliant K fan. Let's talk about what we're here for. What is it? Dungeons and Dragons. It's gotten huge. All these big things. Critical Role. Not another D&D podcast. Sqat, you're probably not. I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong, but you're not a Dungeons and Dragons guy.
I can count on one of my 4 monkey hands the number of times I've played Dungeons and Dragons. The first was at a birthday party in circa 2013, and I modeled my character after Barney the Dinosaur. We had 1 session, and then we went to eat Chipotle, and I don't think we ever continued. The second time was part of Metroid May. This title's really good, so hold editor for a second, so I can get this pulled up. Sorry, I'm so unprepared.
Something from a former life.
Something from the distant future, which is really my past.
You're kind of a link of yourself in that way right now.
I'm the link to my own past. It's remarkable.
Well,
Okay.
you kind of are though. Like, think about that. You're sealed up in the Temple of Light right now.
Oh, dang it! I didn't put it in the YouTube title. It was something like Morph Balls and Metroids. Was our Metroid themed DMD. Shout out Doobie Teen, Crash and the Boys. These are 2 different people, but I'm shouting them both out for DMing that very short session, about 45 minutes. And
Rest in
peace.
tacos. No, rest in tacos.
Rest in Del Taco.
For those of you that don't know, Doobie Teen is buried outside of a Del Taco.
Yeah, pay tribute next time you drive through. Those are the only 2 times I've played.
There's a couple of classes of people who like D&D and don't like D&D. Would you count yourself on like the like or dislike?
I thought it was a lot of fun both times I played it. I don't know if those I played with would agree with me, because I tend to take my choices and do them really dumb to prolong the story, and people don't really tend to like that, but I enjoy it. If it's a choice between taking the elevator or climbing the side of a building with my suction cup gloves, I will choose the suction cup gloves every time.
Yeah, and I think you're the kind of player that when you come into my game, I'm like, oh boy, I've got to look out for this guy because he's just going to try and break my game.
We just got a troll among us. It's a troll, and not the kind of troll that's typical to D&D.
Totally valid though, but I think that what you're talking about, that spirit, even people who want to troll, D&D is still fascinating because it kind of lets you just do things. It's not like a video game. As much as we both play video games, love video games, and talk about video games, Dungeons and Dragons is kind of like almost the ultimate video game if you have a good imagination, because you really can kind of do whatever.
Back in episode 2, we talked about how Dungeons & Dragons is the proto-RPG. That whole genre really took inspiration from the strides Dungeons & Dragons were making in the offline game world.
I definitely think there was that time too where it came out of war games and evolved into something else. And I think there's kind of an old school guard who regard Dungeons and Dragons as you get your elf archer, you get your human fighter, and so on and so forth, and you go in and you raid a dungeon. And that's great. I love that version of D&D, but kind of what's interesting to me is how D&D has evolved in almost the past decade. I played it when I was really, really young, and then I started playing it again in about 2013. And for me, Dungeons & Dragons became just like this really cool way to tell stories. My favorite thing about video games is stories, and I think I have enough experience in it that I can like remix stuff for my friends. I always say my favorite thing about Dungeons & Dragons is making my friends feel cool. And just to give you a little bit more background on that too, I've been DMing for about 5 or 6 years, and again, playing since 2013. And I've seen a lot of different things. I've been able to explore a lot of different like story ideas. There was even a point where about 15 to maybe 20 of my coworkers, eventually I built this whole story that included all of them, and they were playing simultaneously. and they were able to affect each other's stories. And those are the types of things that I really wish video games could do, where it's like interactive, personal, and I love stories that have an emotional core to them.
Well, you could even theoretically just make it go on forever. Just keep continuing the storyline with these people that have been playing with you for years.
Yeah, exactly. Dungeons & Dragons really is just like, it can be whatever you want. I was just hearing about this other podcast that's doing like sitcom situations. And essentially it's every episode is, this is your situation. And it's like, what if you were in Frasier and you could affect it?
It's the ultimate fan fiction where you are part of the world you so wish to inhabit.
Except for these days, Dungeons & Dragons is hot business.
Ooh, hot.
Critical Role, that, you know, in the Twitch leak that they had, unfortunately, Sqat, you and I weren't on that. Highest paid Twitch streamers.
I think we just edged out.
I think that, yeah, it ended at, I think
we're in the lower 200s.
We were so close. I guess Critical Role made something like 9 million in a year or something like that. Insane. People are into it.
It's a nice little nest egg right there.
Yeah, if I could make 9 million on Dungeons & Dragons, that would be it. I'd be done with life.
You know, I think you could happily retire to your Dungeon Master headquarters after that for good.
I think we're talking about this a little bit too, Sqat, but Dungeons & Dragons, I think, is taking your friends, and I love taking people who either haven't really played it or don't, you know, it's not their thing, and showing them what they would actually enjoy about Dungeons & Dragons. On one level, what's dope about Dungeons & Dragons is if you can get people convinced, like, hey, we're going to get some pizza, we're going to have maybe some drinks, a couple beers, or, you know, soda if you're from Utah like me, then you get your friends together and you just laugh and have a good time. I think what the idea of what a typical Dungeons & Dragons player has changed so much, especially for me.
All right. Would you say the online component is playing a big part there? The fact that you can not be so localized that you have to play in the same room and you can play across states or even country lines?
I think so. I will say, though, that my ideal experience is being in a room with people.
Sure.
Even though you can play online, that's great. So, Sqat, why haven't you picked up D&D yet?
You know, I think just the commitment of it, having to continue the storyline, and most of all, I'd have to play it straight. I couldn't just troll for a session. So maybe you can show me the joys of playing a serious round, session, storyline, I don't know these terminologies, of D&D. Perhaps I'll turn over a new leaf.
That's what we're here to do, Sqat. My goal here is to convince you on why D&D is cool, why you should give it a try, and why the listeners, if you haven't played it, let me DM a game for you, and I will show you why it's so much fun.
Well, I'm all ears. Let's get started.
I'm going to start off with this. You know, a lot of listeners, you might not know Chunky Cat. She's one of our friends.
Shout out, Chunky Cat.
She is notoriously difficult to please.
This is true. She's very easy to displease, though. I take great pride in that.
And I've talked to her about it for years. We did a stream back in December with Crash, That's Amori, and Chunky Cat. And it was amazing the day after. She's like, yeah, I get why that's fun. I would play again.
Remarkable.
Yeah, that is to me like a gold star, A+, you did it.
That was the peak of your year, in all honesty. It was all downhill from there.
I didn't need a Christmas present, but then she moved away from me and moved to Florida, and it was just like Christmas all over again.
Living her best Michael Mouse life, far away.
So, Sqat, here's what is cool about D&D.
Tell me.
You can be whatever you want to be. You can be a troll, I guess, but you're going to miss out on stuff. And also, you get to just like work with people. You get to learn like skills, social skills, team building skills. And if you like video games, it can be crunchy as hell. You can have maps. You can do all this stuff. It can be whatever you want it to be. I want to talk about, and literally with my coworkers, the first time I DM'd a game for them, they did this whole thing in this city. There was like a whole boss fight and a mystery, and they figured that out. But one of my best memories of Dungeons and Dragons is when those 5 players were just walking to the next town. I told them, there's this big city, like 3 or 4 days to the north, and they jump into this caravan, and it's like, you know, they're like, hey, who's here? And I was like, there's this family of people here, and there's another thing here, and they're like, well, we want to go talk to them. And they started off with this conversation. I just had to improv. Here's this couple that couldn't get married. Their parents wouldn't allow it. So they eloped. And they're going to the big city to try and make it. My players set up an impromptu wedding on the road.
Oh my gosh.
And it was my favorite thing in Dungeons & Dragons where I backed out. I was just like, for like 30 minutes, I was just standing, like sitting there, and they'd be like, are there flowers here? Are there this here? Is there this here? And I'm just like, yeah, there is. Oh, you got to look for it. And they straight up did this whole thing, learned their names, learned where they were going. And it's those kinds of experiences that like stick with me.
Fortunately, they stopped in Fantasy Vegas, so it wasn't really an issue to get married there.
Sqat, I know this is why we don't play D&D.
It's too easy, folks. It's too easy.
Well, I feel like if you and I ever do play, I have to write the game like that. Like, oh, Sqat's going to mess with this, but that's the point.
So long as you know what you're in for.
Exactly, because then I'd be like, oh, yes, Sqat, there is a Fantasy Vegas.
Oh, joy.
And now you have to go there.
I'm excited. I'm ready.
Let's talk about who SqatCobblr as a character would be. Now, keep in mind, listener, that I have forbade SqatCobblr from thinking of a character that's just a meme, that's just Diddy Kong.
You know, I did get a letter notarized from Nintendo right before we recorded this. I don't know how they knew. They must have ears everywhere, but they said, due to our copyrighted character's likeness, you cannot design your D&D character after quote unquote Diddy, quote unquote Kong, quote unquote any other of the Donkey Kong trademarked series. So that unfortunately shot my whole plan for a character. So I guess we're just gonna have to design one from scratch right now.
Perfect for me. Honestly, though, SqatCobblr, my legal department was trying to see if they could pay any sort of fee to license that for you. It didn't come in time, and I think that might have been why they wrote back.
You know, the fact that they were aware of it should be, you know, it's putting us on the map. You know, all publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, exactly.
Nintendo of Japan, Nintendo of America, happy to have you here. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, at least somebody's listening. Just kidding. Shout out to all of you that are listening. Thank you so much.
Shout out Sheriff McLawdog in Canada.
In Canada, he is a DK revolutionary.
He is. He did. He's the only one, as of this recording, that answered the call from our last episode. So, Sheriff McLawdog, the great ape smiles upon you this day. May you be blessed with bountiful banana.
My next character is dedicated to you, my friend.
Mm.
Okay, let's talk about your character. So, in D&D, we're not going to get too crunchy, everybody, so don't turn it off yet. Give me a second to talk about it. What's cool about Dungeons & Dragons, yes, I did just say that, Squalor. What's cool about Dungeons & Dragons is that you get to create a character. There is so much customization. Think of the best game customization you've ever done. This is more.
This is more than Skyrim. This is more than Cyberpunk 2077. I didn't actually play that, but I know the memes.
Even more, if you can believe that much.
God.
We'll talk about a couple of basic things, though. When you're creating a character, much like a video game, you have to think about a couple different stats. You have to think about your strength, your dexterity, your constitution, your intelligence, your wisdom, and charisma. What we usually do in my games is what they call standard array, which means you get a set number of points. Think Fallout with your special points. You can't just go and put 10 in everything. You have to decide, am I going to be a strength character and I'm going to try to talk my way out of things? Am I just going to hope that luck gets me through? So, SqatCobblr, if you were to jump in, you kind of know the format of tank, DPS, support, healer, that kind of thing. If you were to join, what kind of group do you imagine yourself being part of? What is any kind of, let's say, story or setting? Maybe something low magic where, you know, a little bit like Conan the Barbarian, where you're just out to kill things and pillage and to become strong? Do you see it as maybe an HBO type drama where there are things to uncover about your character, emotions, and maybe high stakes? Or do you think of it like a sitcom where, hey, this time we're going to one-shot things?
I'd like to uncover more about myself as I go, so we'll go with the HBO drama.
Okay, perfect. This is my type. Final Fantasy has inspired me to create stuff that is deeply about your character, who they are, and every time I DM like a game that's going to go for a while, I sit down and I work with the player and I'm like, here are like 5 secrets that you don't know about your character that you can figure out. So what kind of character do you want to build, SqatCobblr? A strength character? I kind of sent you a list of classes. What did you think about them?
I see a lot of variety here. We got wizards, we got druids, sorcerers, bards, clerics, warlocks. Is that the same thing as a wizard? I guess not. Paladin. I don't even know what that is. Monks, and not that's not monkey. That's monk, like the praying kind. Got rogues, fighters, barbarians. There's a lot of variety here. I think I should choose someone who sneaks around.
Dummy thick.
So I'm gonna go with rogue.
Dude, yes, my favorite class. I love rogues. Okay, what you should be talking with your DM about. What is the setting? What kind of place are you going to be living in? Currently, in the campaign that I'm working on with some friends, it is like kind of steampunky. There's trains, there are airships that can fly. There's a way to explain it. They use metal, they're kind of almost in a steel time. And all that to say that there are big cities. There's a place where a rogue can really do well. So you've got your rogue. Have you thought about what your character's motivation would be? What gets rogue SqatCobblr out of bed in the morning?
I think I'm always just looking for the next big thing. Maybe I'm a con man. Maybe I'm an entrepreneur. But I like to be a little bad. It makes me happy. So let's say I'm a con man. Let's say I'm always looking for my next mark.
Perfect. There's a lot of different classes that you can get into. You're a rogue, and the types of things that are important to you, the types of stats, are generally things like dexterity, intelligence, wisdom. All these stats would be perfect for you. Dexterity means you're a fast person. You have a lot of agility. You're able to react to things quickly, and you use weapons like knives. You're very good with a knife.
You could say I'm a speedy boy running on 16-bit arcade hardware.
Can't do this on Nintendo Genesis.
There's kind of a couple different paths then you can take, and I'm going to talk about the subclasses here to you a little bit, go into that. So even though you're a rogue, there's a couple things. There's like an arcane trickster, which lets you also use a little bit of magic. In this world, magic is everywhere. Everyone uses it. They understand it. It's almost as natural as being able to run.
It's also a show on Netflix now. Shout out IDC.
Wow, there you go. Assassin, kind of the same what most people think of when they think of a rogue. You're able to masquerade yourself, kind of a hitman of yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
You get in, you can infiltrate, you can trick people, you're smart, and then you can deliver a killing blow and disappear into the darkness.
Oh boy, here I go killing again.
That's exactly it. The next one is an inquisitive. As an inquisitive, like you're saying, this might be good for you because you're trying to pick up the score. You're analyzing what's going on. You're using your intelligence to read people and predict what's going to happen.
All right.
Next up, you have the mastermind. Kind of the same thing, except for your tactical. You get a bunch of different bonuses that are things like advantage on a bunch of different things. Basically, you tell people, do this. I saw this, so do this. You're able to see into how things work.
I've got a plan. Have some faith.
Have some faith.
I know there's more, but we're going to talk about Scout as the last one, which is a little bit of a ranger, but it's not just wildlife and reading that type of thing. You're a little bit more into knowing how to ambush and things like that. So out of those that we talked about, Scout, a mastermind, inquisitive, assassin, and arcane trickster, which of those sounds interesting to you?
I think if I am going to be a no-good con man, maybe I should do something a little opportunist, a little inquisitive, maybe.
Perfect. SqatCobblr, the rogue inquisitive. We've got you so far kind of figured out the role you're going to fill in the team. Kind of the same. I love rogues because I get to do the thing I'm best at, which is talk people into stuff.
All right, well, I'm very easy to convince.
I got him on the podcast, didn't I?
Do your best, Rat.
All right, Sqat, I'm going to build this character for you. I might ask you a couple of questions. And the reason, honestly, why I did this is there might be, I don't know if you're able to some point, but maybe we'll put it up on the Discord or something like that. I have been talking with like Mitzi, Ultrajonic, and we might do a one-shot. And I would honestly love for you to try this, just to see what it's like in a setting that's not just Metroid May and not at a birthday party.
I would love to join the Choo Choo Boys at some point for this grand event.
We'll fill all that in for you. I don't want to get too crunchy, Sqat, but you look at that paper, the Dungeons and Dragons character sheet. Do you have any thoughts or questions about it?
Okay, so I see we got acrobatics, animal handling, arcana. I guess that's magic.
Yeah.
Athletics, deception, history, insight, intimidation, investigation, medicine, nature, perception, performance, persuasion, religion, sleight of hand, stealth, survival. These are a lot of big words.
There's a lot in there.
I gotta fine tune each one.
Well, what if I told you all that big list of things, all the special skills you read, they're all basically just a part of a bigger number?
Wait, I see it now. In parentheses next to it, there are other words.
This becomes really easy to read. I know it looks like it makes no sense, but it's actually pretty simple. I think what you would really like about Dungeons and Dragons is that you don't have to troll to have fun. I know it's fun to troll. I get it. When people play and they troll, I'm like, I get it. You want to try stuff out. But the thing is, Dungeons and Dragons is even funnier when you're trying.
No way.
Some of the biggest laughs I've ever had where we're like trying to take it super straight.
Oh my gosh. You mean committing to the bit can actually be funnier? Whoa.
Dude, Sqat, I really want you to try. I don't know if you've met Ken Colty or Foosgorg. They'll like lurk on stream sometimes.
Yeah, they stop by sometimes.
They stop by sometimes. And the most fun thing to me about that is that, especially them, they talk about things that we did in the game as if they actually happened. So we'll be hanging out and they'll just be like, oh, you remember the lava dragon when I had the mask that gave me, flame resistance and I didn't get burned, I didn't die for 100 damage? Or, there's also, I've had like tears. I've made my players cry. Like,
you trying to make me cry on the podcast, Ratnado? Oh my gosh, I gotta. Okay, I'm emotionally prepared now.
Exactly. That is my goal. I'm just gonna get you to cry.
All right.
I kind of want to know of what kind of things also hold you back. I mean, understanding that it's not for everybody. What other things have deterred you from playing Dungeons and Dragons that I could maybe talk about to our listeners about why they should give it a try?
If I'm being honest, no one's ever asked for a second session.
Really?
So, yeah, I mean that birthday party, like that was a group of high school friends. I mean, I'd see them all the time, but we just never continued it. Metroid May, I'm sure we would have continued that, but then Doobie died, so that complicates things a little bit.
True.
I'm more than happy to participate. It's if it's a fun story, I don't see any reason why not to.
Amazing. Things are crazy right here. We've got the segment on Team Ratnado channel. It's called Lab Rats. It's where I play with people. SqatCobblr. Not immediately. I know things are difficult with the barrelgram, but if ever there's a way for you to appear through the barrelgram, I would like to invite you to play. This character that you've created, we didn't talk about him too much. Maybe we will a little bit more some other time, but I would love for you to come play sometime.
I'm offering up a banana sacrifice to the Great Ape right now that may happen someday in the 20th century.
Amazing.
We'll just meet halfway.
We'll meet halfway. Yeah, exactly. I'll go to the 1940s, 1950s.
Something like that.
I think it's the 1950s. And then even one day, I know that I told you I would also DM a game, a Donkey Kong Country or a Donkey Kong Island game.
You accidentally came up with an amazing abbreviation of that. Do you wish to share it? Or should we hold on to that for future?
Let's hold on to that. If we do play like this offline, I can do that anytime. I'm scared of doing Lab Rats just because of my internet situation. But once you get settled, talk to me and maybe we'll do that name. We'll release it then.
You'll want to be there, folks. It's a good one.
Okay, I've talked enough about Dungeons and Dragons. My legal department is saying we can't do any more content. It's gonna be a whole legal thing if we continue to work. So SqatCobblr, I hope you had fun. I hope you weren't too bored by me talking about my favorite thing, maybe my favorite thing in the world, Dungeons and Dragons.
I'll be a little honest. I'm disappointed your legal team is stepping in. I was having a bit of fun there, crafting my shady con man rogue. I guess we'll have to have a part 2 down the road.
Oh yes! Okay.
Here, SqatCobblr, am asking it myself without coercion. There is no peacemaker being held to my back. This is what I want.
It's true, folks. There's nobody there. There's nothing.
I'm so lonely.
I think. Oh wait, there was one more thing I was gonna say. No, yeah, a part 2. You guys, I'm hyped. I hope you're hyped. If you want to learn more about Dungeons and Dragons, reach out to your local DM and ask for help. If you're not playing Dungeons and Dragons, stop it. Get some help. Get a DM. And I think though we're gonna have to end for now until part 2. I've got to get ready for the part 2. Already emotionally preparing myself for part 2.
I'm emotionally preparing myself to cry because I know it's coming.
Hey, thanks for checking this out. I've been Ratnado at twitch.tv/Team Ratnado. Come check it out. We playing games. We're trying to make it work. I'm troubleshooting the internet. It's going to be working soon. I'm here with my co-host, SqatCobblr.
Here I am, folks. Looking forward to meeting up with you again.
In that big rodeo in the sky.
Oh, hopefully before then.
All right, take it easy, everyone. Thanks for checking us out. Bye.
See ya.